Hey guys, this video is going to be an Olympus ranked drop spot tier list. Ranked drop spots, more than ever, are important to gaining RP. This split brings an entirely new open map with new features like tridents and built-in rifts. With these new features, rotation becomes more important, and getting your hands on rotation becomes even more important. Even if you don't drop at one of the spots that I recommend, this video will still be useful for informing you on the Olympus ranked meta and rotation meta, and the best way to loot each POI. I'm only going to be ranking the 17 named locations. Since there are so many, I'm only going to be going in depth for the ones you should be landing at to keep the video shorter. If you want to just go to the ones that I recommend landing at, I'm going to put the timestamp in the little bar so you can skip the A and S tiers. Rankings are based on the amount of loot, rotation, being tridents and jump towers, position on the map, how spread out the POI is, chance of survey beacon spawn, respawn beacon spawn, and replicator spawn, and the quality of loot. I'm going to be referring to this map a lot, made by YouTuber The Thack. His link is in the description. The map shows every POI and also the tier of loot that can be found in it. I do have a quick disclaimer before the video starts. The path of the dropship is not predictable every game, so the locations that I recommend landing at may vary game to game. It's just a general categorization of which POIs are usually good and which POIs are usually bad. First off, an F tier. F tier are the places you do not want to land at. First off is Estates. Estates has high tier loot with a chance of respawn beacons, replicators, and survey beacons. The reason it is in F tier is simply because it's a hot drop. It's small and not a lot of loot, which leads to 50-50s. It's also in the center of the map with nowhere else to rotate to if you want to get more loot. For pubs, it's a fun drop, but for anyone trying to make it past gold, don't land there. Next on F is Hammond Labs, and that includes Research Basin. Hammond gives mid-tier loot, Research Basin gives high-tier loot. The reason it is in F tier is because everyone rotates to it. Rift, Elysium, and Hydroponics have easy rotates with the portals. Other than that, everyone else just naturally ends up there because it's the center of the map. After F comes D tier. D tier locations, you still shouldn't be looking to land, but they can be decent backups. First in D tier is Carrier. Carrier is in the top left corner of the map. No one really lands there, even though it does have high tier loot. The downside is that there is not much loot. There's no easy way to rotate out of it. When you rotate out of it, you will probably end up fighting the teams that landed docks in Fight Night. Next in D tier is Turbine. Turbine is kind of in the same boat as Hammond. There's not much loot and teams are going to run into you. This leads to just getting team wiped from nowhere. Last POI in D tier is Energy Depot. Energy Depot gives high tier loot, but it's so low on the list due to the lack of loot and its high 50-50 probability. Before we move on to C tier, please like and subscribe so you can see my later content. C tier are the locations you want to land at if your main POI is taken. First in C tier is Fight Night. Fight Night has really good loot, especially in the boxing ring in the middle. The only downside to it is it is often contested. It is also sandwiched in between Turbine, Carrier, Docks, and Power Grid. After Fight Night, it's Gardens. Gardens is a good drop if no one is landing there. I would keep an eye out and just see. If you don't see contrails, I do suggest going there, but it's almost always contested by one or more squads. If you do end up landing Garden though, make sure you control the top part of it. You can also rotate back to Welcome Center and Power Station. Next in C tier is Grow Towers. I'm not going to go in depth, but basically more people land Grow Towers than they should. Grow Towers is super open and really easy to get third party out. Lastly in C tier is Solar Array. Solar Array is my favorite drop in C tier, and I'll often often land there if I have a full 3 stack. I recommend it if you play with a full pre-made squad and just like landing at the same place again and again. The only downside to it is I usually don't leave there with great loot, so after I leave I will rotate over to Bonsai Hillside and get more. Next on the list is B tier. B tier are the go-to backups if drops in A and S are taken. First in B is Oasis. Oasis has all mid-tier loot except the top part, which has high-tier loot. Oasis has Trident spawns, Survey Beacon spawns. It's a really solid drop, especially if no one else is landing. Also in B tier are Bonsai Plaza and Power Grid. These are both good drops, especially if they're uncontested, similar to Oasis. I'm not going to go into any more detail because I want to leave more time for A and S. A tier. A tier spots are where I feel you should be landing at in ranked. The first POI on this list is Docks. Docks gives high tier loot and is often contested, which is two of the main things that make a good POI. And what I love about Docks is even if another team lands there, it won't be a 50-50 fight due to the spread out buildings and being able to see loot as you drop in. Docks also gives you options after you finish looting. After you finish, you have a decision to make. Do you rotate over to Fight Night, which usually has people if you have good loot and are looking to fight, but if you need more loot, you can rotate over to Secondary Power Grid. This has another Trident spawn and more good loot. You can also rotate over to Carrier. Oftentimes, teams don't land there. There will be a Replicator or Servant Beacon to use somewhere along your route, so you should set yourself up the best for middle game. After that, you can take one of the multiple Tridents and rotate into Zone. The other A tier location is Hydroponics. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, by the way, so if I'm not, I'm sorry. The reason I like Hydroponics is there's really no big POIs around it. And for having the amount of loot it does, I'm honestly surprised more people don't land there. It has insane high tier loot and a replicator spawn too. It's such a big POI that your team will usually leave with purple armors and ideal loadouts. From there you can rotate over to Elysium if no one landed there and get even more loot, or if a team did land there, you can go for the fight. The reason I recommend this is because there's no one else to third party. The nearest team will likely be estates and will be too far over to want to rotate back out of their path to safe ring to third party a fight that will likely be over by the time they arrive. Now is S tier. S tier are the best ranked drop spots if you're looking to gain RP. First in S tier is Rift. Rift is a super spread out POI with high tier loot. The big benefit of a spread out POI is you can get a gun and a body shield always when you land there. It eliminates a lot of the RNG off your early game drop. That leaves the rest of it up to skill, which is what we like to see. After looting, you have 3 options. You can rotate to Zone by Trident or Phase Runner. If you take the Phase Runner, you'll come out right by Hammond Labs. Or if you need more loot, you can rotate over to Secondary Power Grid. Secondary Power Grid is the location right behind Power Grid. You can also take the Trident over to Power Station East and Welcome Center. By that point, you should have great loot. The other S tier location is Orbital Canyon. Orbital Canyon is all by itself in the right corner of the map. No one often lands there. When I land Orbital Canyon, I find myself not even seeing another team by the time the first zone closes. You should start by landing at the most inner part of Orbital Canyon, which gives high tier loot. You should scan the survey beacon if it's available, use the replicator if it's available, and after that get in the Trident. Use the Trident to rotate to Power Station South. The most efficient way to loot is top to bottom. Start at Power Station South, go to Defense Perimeter, Crossroads, and you can either go to Solar Array or Ivory Pass after that. After you're finished looting, you should be completely set up for middle game and end game, which is the idea. That was my tier list of the best spots to drop in ranked, so please like, subscribe, and let me know what your go-to drop spot is in the comments. I also just made a ranked guide, so go check that out if you want to gain a ton of RP. Thank you for watching.